Weeks are dying down to seconds and days counting for the final examinations for the 2019-2020 academic year. What are the strategies put forth by teachers in the littoral region? Find out on this edition of the Newscast. The appointment of members of Superior Council and Magistrature has sparked up waves of controversies. Some political actors call on balance in government sector given the ongoing Anglophone crisis. Amongst the political parties who have joined hands in government to donate materials to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, others have relatively been silent. Find out why they have been silent on this edition of the news. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the English Newscast on Spectrum Television. I am Josephine Bindzi. Jean-Michel Ninche has called on authorities in charge of nominations of the Superior Council to stop joking with fire, going by the presidential appointment of some members of magistracy appointed on June 15. Amongst the appointed members, no Anglophone or Cameroonian of the West region was appointed. He calls on a regional representation and balance in all sectors, as he points this to one of the lapses in the country which has drained Cameroon in years on. A good number of political parties in the country are standing out amongst others as they join forces with government in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Through these donations, some have relatively been silent. More with you, John Paul Sama.
The ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement Party, CPDM, is the latest political outfit to show their support to the government in the fight against the coronavirus. The party's permanent Fundi Bureau met with the Minister of Public Health to pen their name with the sum of 20 million francs CFA into the Solidarity Fund book created by the head of state, Paul Biya, in the fight against the COVID-19. Very few political parties in the country are yet to follow this trend in supporting the state in this fight. Nevertheless, others are standing out for the wrong reasons, as the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party launched a fund, Survival Cameroon, which was intended to collect money and aid the government, but their offer was rejected by public authorities for not following laid down norms in carrying on such an initiative. They, however, took it directly to the population as they contributed their quota in this fight, sharing out face masks, hydroalcoholic solutions, amongst others. One other political party that is making a voice heard in this fight is the PCRN of Cabral Libi, with her deputy Noran Fortsing meeting with government officials and obtaining the required documents to carry out the Solidarity COVID-19 237 Fund, aimed at raising the necessary aid to Cameroonians through fundraising for a period of 40 days in a bid to provide them with basic products like soap, face mask, so they can protect themselves. While all this is ongoing, some political parties seem to have returned to their cocoons as the country is facing one of the worst health crises in decades.
Urban disorder in the littoral region remains a core for concern as cars and business persons continually violate public space. Our reporter Catherine Kone caught up with the superior of the Douala 1 municipality, who gives us disturbing revelations about his municipality.
Douala, Cameroon's economic capital, is known to be the town of the good, the bad and the ugly. The town has continued to suffer from a serious social pandemic described as urban disorder. Moving around some neighborhood in the Douala 1 municipality, the non-respect of public order by vehicles, occupation of public spaces by individuals remains a huge responsibility for the town to tackle. Eager to know if the Douala 1 Council, through its service, the municipal pound, has abandoned its duty, the supervisor says.
Oui, le constat il est bien. Effectivement, depuis un moment, nous ne sommes pas sur le
The remark is right. We have not been on the field for a while because of the political calendar. As we just finished with the election, it was in our own political interest not to be active on the field. Equally, after the election, we had the outbreak of the coronavirus. But this will be for a short period of time, as we just received a call from the mayor calling on us to put all our materials together and go back to work. He added that effective works will commence in the days ahead.
Nos populations, mais nous essayons justement tout simplement de faire en sorte que la ville soit un visage humain. Et comme en réalité les populations ont adhéré à ce concept, nous pensons qu'il n'y aura pas de problème. Et très bientôt vous nous verrez sur le terrain et nous espérons d'ailleurs que vous allez être avec nous pour voir les actions que nous allons mener.
Today, it's very common to see cars and traders on walk lanes, hindering the circulation of persons.
And we move over to the southwest region, Meme division in particular. 6 giant water tanks have been positioned at strategic points of the Kumba main market by the Kumba City Council in order to enable the locals in frequent washing of hands as one of the measures against the coronavirus pandemic. We remain with you, Catherine Kone.
Within the framework in the fight against COVID-19 in the country, the Kumba City Council has installed 6 giant water tanks for the washing of hands. The tanks were installed in strategic corners of the town in order to enable the local population in the fight
for TV
against the pandemic. Crowded places like the Kumba main market, the parks, had the tanks stationed at the entrance with the strictly supervision of the Kumba City Council officials. Before gaining access to any of these places, the inhabitants were urged to wash their hands with a compulsory wearing a face mask. The kind gesture by the Kumba City Council was welcomed by the locals, who promised to follow the preventive measures put in place by the government and the World Health Organization to curb the spread of the pandemic. Kumba, the chief town of the Meme Division Southwest region, is said to have several cases of coronavirus. Hence, authorities have been on the offensive to eradicate the virus with series of sensitization campaign and the distribution of COVID-19 kits.
Some inhabitants in the city of Douala have confessed the outbreak of the COVID-19 has been a big push to them attaining the goals set for this year. Our reporter met with some inhabitants and puts forth this report.
Crisis, they say, often brings out the best in humans, and the coronavirus pandemic is no exception. As inhabitants in the city of Douala are drastically adopting their projects for 2020 to fit in the new norm brought in by the coronavirus.
The COVID-19 brought me a lot of concentration and a lot of reflection to better manage the resources that I have. And today, I didn't stay back to say COVID-19 has come, just fold my hands, but I took it as an advantage to work on my projects. And now that COVID-19 is almost disappearing, my projects are moving and there's nothing to write home about. Nothing really disturbed my program because every human being has to plan and be conscious of the fact that good times may come and bad times may come. In my own side, on my side, everything was moving as God has planned it.
I had lots of projects to accomplish this year, and the outbreak of the coronavirus did not stop me. Like, I had to travel to the north in order to cultivate my farm, and I did it this year. To others, the COVID-19 has brought in untold hardship, but nevertheless, life must go on.
I have business that I have to complete this year. Because of the coronavirus, the business are not moving, things are not moving. Because we are really suffering, things are not really moving. I'm still managing. I'm still on the roadside. I'm still fighting for the management. I'm fighting for the management because I cannot stop at home. Because if I stop at home, I cannot have food to eat. I will always come at the roadside to find something to do, to have small income to feed my own family.
Despite the difficulties encountered, these city dwellers are hopeful of glorious days after the pandemic.
Political actors have appreciated the move by the Minister of Health to make public the list of contributors for the COVID-19 Response Fund, but are demanding a detailed explanation of how these funds are managed. Oni Ladonet has details.
The COVID-19 Solidarity Fund, created by the head of state to help fight against the coronavirus pandemic, received different contributions from both national and international bodies. A list made public by the Minister of Health, Manawuda Malashi, on the 2nd of June. However, political observers are questioning the management of these funds.
C'est bien d'avoir des contributions, de savoir qu'il y a eu des contributions en liquide et en matériel.
It's good to know there have been some contributions, with equipment and cash-wise, but it will be best to find out how these funds are being managed. Who is in charge of managing these funds? How will the population be notified of how these funds are managed? That's the most important for us, because it's public funds, and public funds have to be made public in the way they manage them.
Dans le cadre de telles actions, ce sont des fonds publics. Et les fonds publics doivent être rendus publics dans leur gestion également.
Giving an account of how these funds are managed will not only help appease the population, but also generate more contributions from well-wishers.
Normalement, il aurait été intéressant pour nous de savoir, n'est-ce pas, au fur et à mesure, à quel niveau de consommation nous sommes.
Normally, it will be important for us to know the level we are in regards to the money being used. This will help reassure the contributors as well as the public, who will be aware of how this money is being managed. And other contributors can add in some funds because of the transparency in management. I think that's what is missing in regards to the fund for the COVID-19.
Je pense que c'est ça qui manque dans le document qu'on a reçu et même dans l'initiative, dans le process actuel concernant la contribution de solidarité autour de la COVID-19.
This comes at a time where the Human Rights Watch has called on the government to give an account on the spending and management of the Solidarity Fund, a fund where healthcare facilities have made mandatory contributions to this emergency fund for over 25 years.
And we now take you to the Makepe Misoke, a neighborhood in Douala, 5 municipality, feared to be a risk zone of the COVID-19 pandemic, given the dense nature of its population. Catherine Kone has details.
Apart from the New Bend neighborhoods being an epicenter of the coronavirus, another worrisome area is the Makepe Misoke, a locality in the Douala 5 municipality. The quarter that plays host to hundreds of people and internally displaced persons fear being a risk zone to the dreaded disease. Moving around the streets of Makepe Misoke, the barrier measures are far from being respected by some inhabitants, but others have expressed consciousness of its existence and are strictly following the preventives. I have a bucket and detergent, even my own personal product to wash my hands. When I serve, wash my hands and equally wear my face mask. We are taking precautionary measures, the social distancing, washing of hands and the compulsory wearing of face masks. With the palace of Chief Joseph Mofo, who harbors hundreds of internally displaced persons, says all has been done to fight the coronavirus from spreading.
Concoctions that I have been preparing every day for them, and this face mask, they go out frequently. Each person have 5 face masks that he or she is using. And before they go out in the morning around 5 o'clock as they are going out, I have some herbs with me here that I boil them. They all take a task of it before they go out. And when they come back equally in the evening, they take a task of it. And they make sure they wash their hands. They make sure they use the hand sanitizer because they go out equally with the hand sanitizers. And they have their gallows that they put on their hands in order to not have contacts, free contacts with people's hands as they go on.
Douala, being the second city in the country hit by the coronavirus, inhabitants have been urged to strictly respect the barrier measures.
Tobacco consumers, according to the World Health Organization, are more vulnerable to contracting the COVID-19 virus as continual intake of cigarettes may damage the lungs in a long run. John Paul Sama tells us more.
Going by research from the World Health Organization, tobacco smokers may be more vulnerable to contracting COVID-19 as the act of smoking involves contact of fingers and possibly contaminated cigarettes with the lips, which increases the possibility of transmission of viruses from hand to mouth. Smoking water pipes, also known as shisha, often involves the sharing of mouthpieces and hoses, which could facilitate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus in communal and social settings. Getting the deadly coronavirus is not the only risk factor involved, as smokers are prone to contracting a good number of other diseases. Smoking causes cancer, heart disease, stroke, lung diseases, diabetes, and chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, which includes emphysema and chronic bronchitis. Smoking also increases risk for tuberculosis, certain eye diseases, and problems of the immune system, including rheumatoid arthritis. Those who smoke are not the only ones to be sick, but also those around them, as they become collateral damage to this addiction. And for every person who dies because of smoking, at least 30 people live with a serious smoking-related illness. To ensure that the death toll caused by smoking tobacco-related products drop, it is recommended that people quit smoking to save lives.
And on to this lead story, activities in institutions in the littoral region are wrapping up to prepare students ahead of the final examination for the 2019-2020 academic year. Parents have been called up to assist their children in this process, given the unprecedented 2 months of lockdown they spent at home. Christelle Asekswele has details.
Pupils and teachers in the littoral region are gearing up positively and looking forward to the 2019-2020 official examinations due to begin on June 30 with the entrance examinations into Form 1, General and Technical. The teachers and pupils of Government Primary School Aqua sound quite confident in their level of preparedness. Yes, I am ready, even if the examinations were to start today. It's worth mentioning that schools resumed on June 1, 2020 after a 2-month period of lockdown due to the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic in Cameroon. This had an adverse repercussion on the pupils as this caused a lot of lapses and weaknesses in their assimilation of lessons at the beginning. However, the principals and teachers of some government high schools in Douala remain positive towards the level of preparedness of the students, since most of the school programs were already covered before the lockdown in March.
All the programs that were supposed to be taught, lessons for the students in the city of Aqua, we tried, and at this moment as we are talking, every student is ready for the exam.
Parents are called upon to also assist the students at home in revising their schoolwork to help close the gap caused by the 2 months of lockdown.
On the first, it was like the students were ready for it, because on that first they reported the upper seat students. Then on the 4th, the lower seats and the Form 4, they came in, those who are taking CAP in the school. They came in for the classes. The classes went on effectively because everything was put in place for them by the school authority. And this week we are going on for the exams, and the exams are also moving on smoothly.
The 2019-2020 official examinations this year will not be any different in terms of its content and will run from June 30, 2020 with the entrance examinations into Form 1 and with the GC ordinary level and advanced level examinations.
Stagnant water and a littered environment is the leading cause of malaria and typhoid. The inhabitants of the Besenge neighborhood are living a nightmare as it is surrounded by stagnant water. John Paul Sama, visiting this site, paints a picture of it.
It's now becoming a deja vu nightmare for locals in Besenge who are bitter about the drainage situation, which is still the same even after the company charged with its construction solves the problem of stagnant water and floods. Every time it rains, there's always water on the sidewalks, and the mosquitoes here are too much as a result of the stagnant water, which is very dirty. A situation which has been ongoing for a while now, with no permanent solution provided by local authorities. We have taken this problem to various authorities, and at one time they told us that the work are meant for the cleanliness of the neighborhood and not to control floods. At the time, there was a heavy rain which had left the whole area flooded beyond recognition. Even the contractors of Brazil witnessed this situation. They are, however, blaming the poor construction of the drainage by the contractors. You will bear with me that the drain is not deep but wide, and when it rains, water gets into our houses. Even at that, they are also calling on those living around this area to avoid throwing dirt into the drainage. We, on our part, are sensitizing our neighbors on the ills of throwing dirt into it because there is a group of hygiene and sanitation agents who pass around on weekdays to take away our dirt. They are also, however, calling on those in charge to have a second look at this project and a definite solution be provided to this problem.
On our international page, Nigeria's lockdown to stop the spread of COVID-19 has sparked a surge in reported rapes and acts of sexual violence. In response to the rising number of such cases, thousands of Nigerians marched in major cities this month to demand justice for victims. Details with the VOA.
In January 2015, Ifunanya Glory was on her way back from work when she says her neighbor lured her into his house. She struggled to break free as he dragged, beat, and eventually raped her.
So we continued the dragging. I think his TV was broken because we dragged. They started blowing me, giving me blow on my legs and everything. And at the end of the day, I couldn't just fight him again. He had his way. I remember him telling me, even God cannot save you from my hands. The name of God of Jacob protects me.
Ifunanya's effort to get justice for her rapist was in vain. She comes to this church every week to find solace, but says she still lives with the trauma.
If there's a way I can strangle that guy, I will have strangled. If there's a way something I could do to take him out of the earth, I would have done. But there was nothing I could do then. Because then I was also financially handicapped.
The United Nations estimates 1 in 4 girls in Nigeria experience sexual violence before the age of 18. But Nigeria is seeing a new wave of rape offenses and sexual violence against women, up to 3 times more since the coronavirus pandemic started, according to a volunteer aid group, the Domestic and Sexual Violence Team. Hundreds of protesters and human rights campaigners who marched around the police headquarters in Abuja demanded justice for victims. On social media, hashtags like End Rape, No Means No, and Justice for Rape Victims continue to trend upward.
One of those conclusions that we are making now is the fact that the lockdown, of course, has necessitated perpetrators to be within the same confine, within the same space as the survivors, as the people who are being raped, with the women and the girls. So the women and the girls are helpless. The perpetrator also knows that the women and girls are helpless at this time.
Critics say Nigeria has been slow to respond to the problem in the past, but now authorities are deploying special investigative teams on gender violence to each state in the country.
That every one of us have got a sister. We've got a woman in our life. We've got a daughter and we've got a mother. And we will not want any of them to be sexually abused, to be sexually molested, or to be raped. Therefore, we are together with you in the quest for a rape-free Nigeria.
Last year, Nigerian authorities launched the country's first register of sex offenders to punish perpetrators. More recently, Nigeria Governors Forum declared a state of emergency on rape and other forms of sexual violence against women and children in all 36 states of the country. This gives hope to victims like Ifunanya and activists across Nigeria who demand stricter measures for sex offenders. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
On our sports page, the Fumbot District Hospital and some schools in the West region have been equipped with materials to fight against the coronavirus. They received hygiene materials from League 2 outfit Racing FC of Bafusam. Sportsman Sama reports.
The Fumbot District Hospital, just like so many others in the country, has had to deal with the novel coronavirus. They have put in place diverse means in keeping their personnel safe from getting infected.
Engagé avec la réception des malades et des cas suspects de Covid, nous avons engagé des séances quotidiennes, je dirais même bi-quotidiennes de décontamination de l'hôpital pour éviter une contamination aussi du personnel. Et fort heureusement, ça nous a aidé à garder ne serait-ce que le moral, parce que au bout de 2 mois déjà, nous pouvons nous vanter de n'avoir pas eu un personnel qui a été infecté. On a été exposé, mais pas infecté.
Thanks to the protective equipment like hydroalcoholic solution, mineral water as well as eau de javel offered by Racing Football Club of Bafusam, they will continue to keep their health workers safe as they battle this global pandemic. The team of the Tupusan de l'Ouest, headed by her skipper Awa Sagui, as well as some top-ranking members of the supporters club, also made a tour to government primary school Bamenzi, where they had a couple of exchanges with the students while handing them face masks and other equipments to stay safe while learning.
On arrive à point nommé. En ce moment où tout le monde entier fait face à cette pandémie du Covid-19. C'est donc vraiment, ce dont va nous aider à lutter efficacement contre cette pandémie. Les masques, les enfants, vous les avez vus, ils ont les masques, mais de temps en temps, ils peuvent jeter. Vous voyez que ça va vraiment nous soulager dans le dépannage par rapport à ces enfants. De l'eau de javel, du savon, ça va permettre qu'on puisse désinfecter régulièrement les classes, les latrines. Vraiment, ce geste nous va droit au cœur. Nous vous sommes infiniment reconnaissantes.
Racing Football Club of Bafusam ended the last League 2 campaign on the 7th spot, following its abrupt ending by the country's FA, and will be counting on returning amongst the elite next season.
Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Spectrum Television for more interesting programs. Take another rendezvous in the French language with René Nassis Moto, and from Atin Manas, it's a good night.